Hey.
All right, we're live. Hello, everybody.
Okay,
Dr.
good.
Rick Wallace here, and I have the creative one, as I like to call her, Tiffany Banks here, and Tiffany's pretty much going to take the lead. I'm going to sit back, and when it's time for me to chime in, she'll let me know.
Okay, good morning, everybody. The topic for today is dispelling myths when it's concerned with Black-owned businesses. I chose this topic for Rick and I to discuss because we have about 6 days
Well, looks like she's gotten pinched again. We still haven't seemed to be able to deal with this glitch on her end for whatever reason. She gets cut off, and so we're probably going to try a different platform and see how that works. She should be checking back in shortly.
Are you good?
I'm here. I'm whatever it is, it only seems to happen on your end because it doesn't seem like I lose the connection, and it may be because we're running the platform from my end, and there may be some type of glitch. What I'll be doing after this broadcast is looking for another broadcast system. There are a lot of systems out there, but we need one that allows for the split screen and for us to be able to communicate and everybody to be able to see what's going on. This one provides an easy setup, but it obviously has glitches. But go ahead and let everybody know why you chose that topic.
Okay, yeah. What I was saying was I chose this topic is because there's a whole bunch of myths as to each other, and every time we start discussing, people have all of these gripes on either side, and I just wanted to address them. I'll say, and what I'll do, I get finished, or when we're broadcast, I will also provide links to that I'll be sharing during the broadcast. So you can go and you can take a look at it yourself and see how some of the things, the truth about some of the things. So first I wanted to start off on people about Black-owned businesses, just giving some facts about Black-owned businesses before we get into how people feel about Black business owners, all the problems. So there are 2 million Black-owned businesses in the U.S. 2 million Black-owned businesses in the U.S. 94% of the businesses are made up by partnerships or partnerships, and they don't employ anybody. They don't have any paid employee. So we're talking about 2 million Black-owned businesses, and then we have 90 businesses that are either run by one person or 2 or 3 person, and then paid employee. There's nobody on the payroll. So essentially what that means is Black-owned business are started by 1, 2, or 3 people. And what happens is when we talk about Black-owned businesses, there's not a lot of funding. There's it's evident, you can see it. We're not, it pertains to getting loans, going to banks, getting bank loans or whatever. So own businesses with 1 or 2 people running them, no employees. And usually Black-owned businesses are started up with capital that's been saved by the that started this. They are working solely on their savings to keep this business afloat, which is one reason why we should support Black-owned businesses. There's a whole bunch of other funding options out there. For instance, all the plaques that they have. But when you look at, I'll just use an example, the potato salad man, to potato salad. And he raised this out money for potato salad ingredients. Now, if we were to look at the platform he used, I'm not sure if he used Indiegogo or a different platform, but when you have that are trying to start Black-owned businesses or a business period, just Black people, and you go, they're not going to raise that type of money because we don't really donate to things like that. I don't know why, but we don't. So GoFundMe's, I see them all the time. I see GoFundMe's, I see different campaigns floating around on a page, and people say, you know, I'm trying to, you know, and such and such, and you don't get any feedback. You don't get any. The first thing that's wrong with that is I was always taught, if you are starting something, you're the first person that needs to be investing in your. So it doesn't really make sense asking someone else to fund your idea, to fund your dream, and you haven't put anything an investor will ask you is how much of your own money have you invested into your business? How much of your own time have you invested into your business? And if you haven't done anything or you haven't done enough, you know, they're not going to do anything either. So it starts with you. I don't want to get too far off the subject, and I want to try to go ahead and move into the main focus of this broadcast, but I do want to just go over a few more facts. So we're talking Black-owned businesses in the U.S. 94% of those businesses, like I said, are sole proprietorships or partnerships. Okay, so have the largest amount of Black-owned businesses. New York is number one, followed by Georgia, and followed by Florida. The cities with the most Black-owned businesses: New York City, followed by Chicago. Then you have Houston, and then you have Detroit. So I'm getting a message that's saying that I have a, so it's doing the same thing. It's going in and out. Hopefully,
yeah, I'm getting the same thing. I'm not knowing if the same thing is happening on my end, but you are definitely breaking up. So what we're going to have to do is probably find a better one. I know that Arnicia said that Zoom also offers a platform. I use a platform when I'm live streaming on YouTube, and it allows me to live stream on Facebook. The problem is the split screens inviting someone else in. That used to be easy because you could do it with Google Hangouts, but now Google, you know, drives you straight to YouTube, which they own. So you can use Google Hangouts to set up a live stream on your Google YouTube channel, which we could still do, but then we wouldn't be live here to get the questions that we need. So we're going to have to find and figure that out because you're touching on some very, very prevalent topics. And I'm going to touch on one. I'm going to hand it back and I'm going to see if there's any settings that I can mess around with it. I don't see much. It's very, very simplistic. Not a lot of ways to, you know, adjust settings and stuff like that. And so, but you talked about the crowdfunding and the lack of support when it comes to crowdfunding with Black-owned businesses and Blacks. Well, one of the things is the psychology of that is we just generally don't support one another. And it goes deep. So when you talk about the psychology of business, when we talk about the stereotypes of businesses, Black-owned businesses, you know, they give horrible services, they got horrible products. You know, it's just the worst experience in the world. Well, actually, a lot of that is set by the psychology of expectation, because that's the stereotype. we have a very, very low tolerance for Black-owned businesses. We go in, and the first time we have a bad experience, I'm never going to deal with Black-owned businesses again. I'm done with it. We'll go to Walmart. They'll treat us like crap every day, and we'll go back the next day because the stereotype doesn't set the expectation. So a lot of it is expectation. But where you were talking about the crowdfunding, another issue is, like you said, especially when it comes to us. If you go to a hard money lender, you go to an angel investor, you go to a venture capitalist, you go to anybody that's going to be an actual investor outside of conventional lending, out of financial institutions, the first thing they're going to ask you is how much skin do you have in the game? And that skin can be capital, but capital isn't always money. How much of your time have you invested? How much research have you invested? How much have you put into your business plan? What are your projections? How close are you to it? What's the cost in blood, sweat, and tears and financial capital? And if you haven't invested anything in that, I tell my own clients all the time, I will never invest more in someone than they've invested in themselves. Now, that doesn't have to equate in dollars, but it has to equate in how much skin you have in the game. Until you stand to lose as much as I'm losing in one way or another, I'm not going to get invested into it because it's too easy for you to treat casually or too easy for you to walk away from. So I'm looking for what's tying you to it, what's motivating you, and what's pushing you. And capital is a very telling part of that. But I just want to touch on that because I'm actually doing an expansion and I'm testing a number of different alternative mechanisms. I've always financed my own businesses. I've always financed in and out. In other words, my launch formula has always been start with a very low startup cost, as low as possible. Get in at the ground level and have a massive scale out plan of how you're going to do it by using the internal revenue generated by the company to expand itself. And that's the way I've always done it. But with what I'm doing now, the scale out is so huge, and I'm trying to do it in such a short period of time. I was looking for alternative methods, and the crowdfunding thing, I watched it work tremendously well for other groups. Raise millions. I saw like two years ago when they did that Veronica Mars movie. All of the fans of the television show was pushing for it. So the producers, executive producers and everything did a Indiegogo campaign, and in one day they raised the entire budget for the movie. And so it's doable, but you got to have a following. You got to have people who are behind you and really believe. There's so many different things that go into it, but there are a number of other different funding mechanisms at times we'll get into. But it's back to you now.
Okay. So went over the states with the most Black-owned businesses, and I wanted to over the points that are coming from some of the points that Black-owned business owners are making. So when this network first segment, and it was before the live out here, but what I used to do was go visit a Black-owned business in Georgia. He did one, and the owner would speak to the owner, and ask some of your issues, businesses, just any issue, not issues with support, just issues, period. And they used to give me an array of answers. But when it pertains to and Black-owned, the first thing that the Black consumer are looking for discounts. They're always asking for discounts on merch, and they don't do it to other vendors, other merchants, other people. And I wanted to address, when we're talking about discounts, see the Black people, when you ask them or ask, well, why is the price higher? And is I can get it cheaper somewhere else. And I understand that cost, will always be a fact. I want people to understand when we're talking about Black-owned business. I told you that most of the time, these people have started these businesses with their own savings. This is not money that has been given to them, not money that's coming from a bank, because it's very, very hard for us to get funding. So this is money from say that they have, and have a product at a Black-owned business, and you'll see it with a different merchant, somebody else's business, and it's cheaper. And a lot of this happens because I'm not sure if people understand. You can buy and afford to buy, the cheaper you. So when we talk about wholesale thing, wholesale or real wholesale price, everything that says wholesale is not a risk. It all depends on how much. So when you go to Macy's and you see them with all of this perfume, and then you go to a small perfume shop or whatever, and a smaller inventory, it's because you don't have as much buying power. So a wig on sale in my store, and it's for $50, and then you see it at a different store for $30, it's because they have been allowed to purchase it at a cheaper price, because I could probably only buy 50 of those wigs, and the other business could buy 150 of those wigs. So the more you buy, of course, if I was selling jeans, get my jeans at the same price that Walmart gets its jeans for, because Walmart is a conglomerate. They can outbuy me. So, and that affects the price. So when we're talking about supporting Black-owned business, it's a sacrifice most of the time. You have to want to support them. And it is a sacrifice. Sometimes you'll find, as long as the price is somewhat competitive, I think it's worth it to support. The second thing that Black-owned business owners, lack of respect from the Black customer. I really don't know how to get into that. I'm myself, and I have seen it. I have seen it a lot. My and my father both were entrepreneurs, and this was way back. Y'all don't get upset with me, but I'm just going to tell you what my mother did. And this is very telling of how far we still need to come. But my mother had a business back in the 80s, in the early 80s, and she had a business inside of a popular mall here in Georgia. The mall is no longer here, but what she was not the face of the business. She hired a white lady to be the face of her business. So when people came into her, they saw a white lady, and she was like, yes, I'm the owner. And something is very, very wrong with that. Something is very, very wrong with it. So when the owners are talking about lack of respect, it's getting better, but there is, I said myself, especially when people find out that I'm a Black woman with my business, I catch it. It seems like, oh, Black owned, or whatever. And I don't really, what do you have to say? What would you attribute that to?
All right, you're dealing with two distinct different dynamics that enforce the same rule. The first dynamic is that we've been conditioned not to trust one another. We've been conditioned to see anything Black as being inferior. We automatically associate whiteness with superiority. So if it's a white-owned business, it's going to be run better, it's going to be managed better, the products that they sell are going to be better. That's inculcated into the psyche of Black people. And so we go in expecting certain things. And so we tend to shy away from Black owned businesses because we don't equate Black product, Black service, Black business with quality and customer service. On the other side, you have whites who simply will not support a Black owned business simply because it's a Black owned business. And then that dynamic is substantiated by a number of different factors from that are also guided by negative and erroneous stereotypes. So on both sides, you have these uh, erroneous stereotypes, and I call them erroneous because actually, when you visit, out of those 2 million businesses, I would say at least 75 to 80% of them function well, are well organized, have good customer service, provide good products, and do a very good job with what they have. It's a small portion of the businesses that you get the crappy service, and you can almost determine where you will find it and what's going on with it. And what you'll find is when you compare that to the service you're getting from the Asian stores in the Black community, the Arab liquor store in the Black community, the Arab gas station in the Black community, the service is no worse. It's simply that we have a lower tolerance of what we're willing to accept from our own. And so we magnify any wrong behavior subconsciously, not consciously, subconsciously. We just automatically see any infraction by a Black person as measuring into or meeting the stereotype that we've been trained to believe. That creates a lot of what you got. And what your mom did is actually not that uncommon among Black businesses. There were times when I first got into real estate that I had white frontmen that will go in to make the offers and close the deal when it was mine. And also when I was getting ready to set up certain businesses in certain areas, I would use frontmen. Why? Because they didn't want a Black owner in the area. And so I had to get through that loophole by using a frontman. And then it just got to the point where I graduated until I actually became known in certain arenas, and people looked at what I brought to the table, and what I brought to the table started to measure up with or equal to or greater than the dislike they had for me based on the fact that I was a Black man. And that's just a few of the things that we have to actually learn how to deal with as Blacks, is that we're going to have to understand. And real quickly, I'm going to go back to what you were talking about from the economic perspective of Black business owners having to charge more. You have to understand when you're looking at something, what we have right now, because you talked about the 2 million Black businesses and the fact that the vast majority of them are sole proprietorships or partnerships. And what that means is while we have these businesses and it looks good on paper to say we have 2 million Black businesses, because we're not supporting these businesses and we're not getting behind these businesses, they don't really have the capacity to make the economic impact in the Black community that we need them to. And that's become employers. When we become employers, now we can go out and give jobs to Blacks who can't get jobs in the mainstream. And now we're becoming powerful because we don't have to ask others to do for us what we can do for ourselves. But that starts at a level of saying, you know what, it's going to cost me a little more, but I'm going to support the business. It's going to take a little bit more patience because this girl got this attitude, but I believe she's got a good service and I believe she'll learn. Everybody's evolving. Everybody's evolving. So you're looking for people who are evolving, who may not be everything that they need to be, but they're trying to get there.
Right. Okay. And so when we talk about the lack of respect, it also you just touched on made, and that was the lack of redemption. We don't allow the businesses to redeem themselves. Business owners told me that, okay, well, they write us off. After one bad experience, we're never coming back. And not only will they not come back, but I've noticed this too. When you get good service at a business, you rarely ever hear about it. But the time somebody messes up, then they get all over social media, bad reviews.
Oh,
They will spread it. It's just, what I suggest when this happens is, if you have a bad experience with a black owned business, just because it's a black owned business, please try to give them the benefit of the doubt. Try to get in contact with whoever is running the business and come to an understanding. Allow them to redeem themselves. We do it with everyone else. I've been in Chinese stores. I've been in, stores where I've been followed around. I've been watched, and I go stores. And I just want people to understand that, things happen. Sometimes there are things that are beyond our, but they happen. And, we need these businesses to redeem themselves. I always try to go, if ever been an issue in my business, I always try to go the extra mile, especially with my people. I'm patient people. If there's a problem, and that's something else that we need to learn as black owned business, as we need to learn to treat our people, how to appreciate our people. And I don't want ahead because I'm trying to stick with the points that we're making. And that was the last point, the chance of redemption. So I'm just going on over into what the consumers were saying about the issues with black owned businesses. And it's always, usually it's tie between customer service and taking for granted. I'm just going to read you, because I like to gather my information first. I like to do my research first. So I did a poll with people like, hey, what is your issue with black owned businesses? And I wanted to read, because I thought that this covered a whole bunch. But this young lady said black business customers for granted. Black business owners don't seem to care how they present their prices to blacks. And when we express concern or disdain, it's met with contempt instead of resolve that would warrant future business. That is true. When I first started off in business, I didn't know a whole lot. And when people would get upset and say, okay, well, this, that, and other, I would take offense to that. I was offended because in my mind, I'm working hard. This is what I'm going through or whatever. And such and such, trying to keep this business afloat. And I mean, how dare you have an issue with such and such and such? Wrong. The wrong thing. Never. Don't do it. That is contention. You're meeting them with contention. You should always meet them with resolve. Try to find a solution, try to accommodate them for whatever went wrong. We cannot approach our customers, our black customers, in a manner that, well, I mean, whatever. No, it doesn't work like that. It's offense. We need to be able to accept constructive criticism and correct whatever, instead of getting offended that somebody has called us out on whatever is wrong. What do you have to say, Rick? I see you got something to say.
I agree 100%. I think one of the problems that we have as a collective is the fact that we tend to operate from the bottom up, where especially with dealing with our own, and we tend to operate like everybody else does with everyone else, and everyone else in the world operates from the top down. What I mean by that is, operating from the bottom up means that I judge an entire situation, an entire group, an entire race by the lowest spectrum of their existence. So I tend to have an opinion of black people based on the poorest performers out there. Whereas if I go, like, for instance, one of my favorite restaurants in the Houston area is Papados. It has been for years. They've gotten way too much of my money. But The thing is, I automatically go in there, and with as many time as I've eaten there, I've had bad experiences. But I don't judge that place based on the bad experiences. Even when I had my first bad experience, it wasn't, oh my God, this is the worst place in the world. It was automatically, let's see what they're going to do to fix it. So you say, I need to speak with a manager. And then you plead your case with the manager. Now, based on how the manager handles things, you establish an idea of what kind of company this is. With us, we look at ourselves and we immediately judge every other Black person based on the worst Black person we know. That's who you are until you prove it otherwise. And I'm not going to give you a whole lot of chances to do this. I'm looking for you to screw up. You got one chance. We don't do that with anyone else but ourselves. At one chance, you got one chance, and I'm out of here. And you, like I said, you go to Walmart, get horrible service every time. How many times you go to Walmart, they got 1 aisle? How many times you go to Walmart and you look up and they following you around, no matter how many times you've been in there and always paid? But yet you back in there. But the first time that a Black-owned business doesn't deliver exactly what you think they should deliver, it's a problem. And then we go put them on blast, which then again paints this portrait of that business that's hard to overcome because we don't have the marketing and branding dollars. We don't have the money to put into a PR campaign to overcome the negative image that someone can throw out. And we, in the flip side of it is, you just said it, we don't celebrate when we're treated right in a Black establishment. Nobody hears about that. Nobody hears, man, I went into this store and oh my God, it was this, and this. It's not heard of. It was like, that was pretty good. And you go on. It's this curve we grade each other on that we've got to deal with. And what I do in my business is I do a lot of teaching about the psychology of business. And that comes from both the side of the consumer and the side of the entrepreneur. Matter of fact, 80% of performance in business is psychology. It's how you view things, how you see things, how you perceive things. Just like you just said, when you first got started, you grinded. You putting in the work. You're doing all this hard work. Somebody got the nerve to come tell you that your slip is hanging or you dropped the ball. What the hell you mean? I'm over. They don't know you just worked 36 hours straight. They just know that what they got in their shipment wasn't what they were ordering. And you are taking offense to getting checked because number one is, that's another thing. We're trained to check any type of aggression towards us. We are automatically trained to meet aggression with aggression, especially when it's us on us. And that's something that we've got to learn to overcome. We've got to learn how to be able to take constructive criticism. We've got to be able to understand that we're in a position that we can actually make a person's day better. It's so many different things that goes on with being a business owner. We lost Tiff for a moment. Hopefully she'll be back in shortly. But basically, what we have to actually do, and see, this is the thing is, I'm real big on holistic education, developing an idea and a sense of identity is part of the work I do in the community, outside of what I do in business. And it's important that we start to develop an understanding of who we are, because as we develop a stronger sense of who we are as individuals, we will tend to look at others who resemble us in a higher light, or in a better way. Looks like Tiffany is getting ready to join us again. Once again, I do apologize for these technical difficulties. Like I said, we're working this out as we go. It was important for us to actually get things started, so we're still trying to do that. Anyway, what I'm going to do, hopefully she'll be back in before we close out. But I see some very good comments in the field. The thing about it is we are in a prime environment economically right now, with a global economy that is being fueled by tech and some financial markets. cryptocurrency, a bunch of things. But when we talk about business, the global economy has opened up wide because now the world has shrunk because of technology. You can be sitting in your living room in Atlanta, in Tampa, in Miami, in New York, in Houston, in LA, and you can be shipping goods to a number of different places well outside of the borders of your city, well outside of the borders of your state, and even your country without ever leaving your home, without ever having to buy the product yourself or house it in a warehouse. You have the ability now to start a company at minimal investment and expand it and scale it based on where you tend and want to go with it. So with all of that being said, this is the perfect opportunity. But with this opportunity comes responsibility as business owners and also as consumers. We have to understand how to operate economically. But we talk a lot about group economics, and I'm just trying to hold things down to Tiffany gets back because this is really her party. But of what she wanted to talk about. But we talk about group economics, but a lot of us don't understand the total dynamics of group economics. When we talk about group economics, we're talking about not simply supporting Black business. We're talking about being able to create a vertical economic structure through which we can operate in multiple industries. What do I mean by that? I mean that while it is good to have retailers like Tiffany, one of the problems that Tiffany consistently meets is she can't always compete in price with other retailers because she can't buy in the bulk that they can, and so she's forced to pay a higher price from the distributor and the manufacturer. Okay, there she is. She's forced to pay a higher price with her distributor because she can't buy in bulk. That's where vertical group economics comes in. In vertical group economics, you're not just investing in business ownership, you're investing in owning distributorships, you're investing in owning manufacturing. Why? Because let's talk about, and I'm gonna give this back to you, since you're back. Let's talk about the beauty supply industry. Beauty supply industry is a $15 billion a year industry. And out of that 15 billion, 96% is generated by African Americans. That's $14.4 billion a year poured off into a $15 billion a year industry. And yet we own less than 5% of the businesses in that industry. And here's why. Because we don't know how to build vertically, meaning that we own in retail or at the entry level or the engagement level where customers meet the business owner, and we own at distribution and we own at manufacturing, we end up getting outpriced. In other words, when you talk about Asians owning retail, they also own distributors and they also have manufacturing connections. So what happens is when if Tiffany were to open up a nail shop, open up a beauty supply store, they're going to charge 75% higher than they charge the Asians that are coming for the same product. Why? Because that automatically forces her out of business and she's no longer competing with her own kind. This is what's happening to us across the board. And when you're creating vertically, you don't have to move horizontally. One of the things that we have a problem with is we tend to have to move horizontally into other economies, the white economy, the Asian economy, the Arab economy, the Jewish economy, to get things we don't have because we haven't built these structures vertically. And so a part of this is starting and saying, okay, we're going to invest in some Black businesses. We're going to sit up and we're going to invest and we're going to demand something from the Black businesses. That's the other side of being a Black business owner. There's a difference in being a Black business owner and being a Black person who owns a business. A Black business owner has Black interests in mind. They're looking to take a portion of what they earn and reinvest back into the interest in education, residential development, in commercial development, in political structuring, all of those different things that we need, education, so many different things we need investment in. So those are just some of the things we're facing. But what we've got to do is we've got to start looking at ourselves and start developing an image of ourselves that is supportive of an identity that we are, a people that can do some exceptional and extraordinary things, because the higher the stronger, the bigger the self-image, then the greater the self-love, the greater the self-concept, the greater the self-confidence, and also the greater the perception of others who look like us, and the more willing we'll be able, and the more willing we'll be in extending them the courtesy of redemption, as Tiffany said. Now, Tiffany, I'll turn it back over to you.
Okay, you mentioned. I just want to touch on something that you were just talking about.
Uh-oh, there she go again.
Because I get this on companies and such and.
Hey, Tiff. Yeah, I think it's the connection. Are you back?
Am I back?
Yeah, you faded for a while, went completely picture froze and your audio was dead. So whatever you were saying during that time, nobody heard it.
Okay, so what I was saying was I wanted to discuss something that you just hit on. When we talk about Black-owned business and people are saying, well, you know, this is made in China, or this, why is this company selling things that so are creating materials that we are making the products with, we are distributing the products, and we are selling the products, marketing, all of that. We don't, for instance, when I buy, or I'm going to use the dashiki, because I was having a conversation with a young lady about the dashiki, and she was saying that if I go out and buy a dashiki, I want to buy it from Africa. I don't want it, because they're saying made in China or whatever. And what I was trying to explain to her is this: if you go to Africa and you buy a dashiki in Africa and you look in that tag, it's gonna say made in China.
Yep.
She didn't believe that until someone else chimed in that had just come back from Africa. That does that person on the other end. Never. I get some other ethnicity on the other end. Usually it's a Chinese person or some a Spanish speaking person or whatever. It's because we are not making these things anymore. And what we are making, those industries are being taken over by other groups of people. They're supplying us. So there's no way until we start making things ourselves, we can just cut other people out of business. That's my to talk about what we spend our money on, and why, just give 4 good reasons why we should support Black-owned businesses. And I'm sure we'll come back whenever we can get this technical thing, this live thing straightened out, because this is a subject that we need to be discussing. We need to be discussing it all the time, as a matter of fact. And we, as much as we have to, so that we get it right. So we'll come back and do this again and go over some more points in the future, but really, really soon. But I just wanted to give 4 reasons why we should support Black-owned businesses so that we can sort of move it along. But the first reason is because it strengthens the community. Okay, so contrary to popular belief, I'm going to tell you what, and this can serve as business ideas for somebody out there that wants to start a business. What we spend our money on footwear. So I feel a grocery store coming on for somebody, because we buy grocery, each electronic shop that will be good, because electronics was number one. The utilities break so people spending their money how they see fit to spend their money if they want to stand in line, because we have a whole other, if we look at the Jordan line, you may see a lot of black and brown faces, but when you look at the iPhone lines, I've seen them. So people have their vices. I'm not here to rag on whatever, vice that you have when you want to spend your money and buy what you like. But it strengthens unity. It's circulating in our community. Money in our community. Our communities are weak. We cannot have a strong money. It takes money. We have to have money. And our communities. Look, and when we speak about this thing, is dependent on how much money we have. The Supreme Court ruled that money is a person, you guys. Money is a person. Money has a voice. So if they're saying that we do not have the economic backing, we do not have the money, that's just something to think about. Like I said, we'll go into more detail when we come back and touch on this subject again. Number 2, the second reason why you should support Black-owned businesses is better quality job options and job creation. Look, the unemployment rate of Black people is twice that of white people. In 2013, 12.4% of Black college graduates, extra emphasis on graduates, between the ages of 22 and 27 were unemployed. So it used to be where we told our children to go to college, and that degree is your way out. That's your opportunity. That's going to pave the way for you. False. That's not true. That's no longer true. That degree is not going to pave the way for you. It's good to have one if you want to have one, but that's not your guarantee. When you support Black-owned businesses, they grow and they can extend job opportunities to people that look like us. If we got together and supported one another, we can cut employment numbers down, especially for our young people. You know, they don't have, they go to college, they get into all of these, get all of this debt. It's racked up, and then they can't find gain in their field. But what we need to be telling them to do is not to go to school and get this degree and come out and work for someone, but to go to school. And if you're going to get this degree, you come out and you utilize those skills that you've acquired in school in a business. Put all that so that you can, you know, teach somebody else, grow the community. But no, do not. We have to stop. We just, our whole way of thinking, of teaching, you know, our children to go to school, come out, get this degree, and go work for somebody else. We're going to have to stop that. We need to utilize those skills for our own businesses. Number 3, and graduates between 22 and 27. That's a lot. That's a big deal. That's a big deal. College graduate. Oh, think about that, and think about the people that are not college graduates, that are out here looking for work, that are unemployed. So that's a big deal. Number 3, the third reason is it diversifies our options to help each other, which ties into number 2. Right now, the most powerful institution in our community is the Black church. That's the most powerful institution. Historically, it has been that way. That's not a bad thing, but it's not a good thing when the most powerful institution is the church. That means that we don't have anything else, any other organization, anything. We cannot, I mean, that's the only thing we have to depend on in the Black community is the Black church. When we get into financial despair or whatever, we turn to the church. I mean, we're gonna have one another, then we'll have more options to help each other. And I want to say about touch. I don't want to get too much into it. I know I rattle on a lot, but when we have people with felonies or with criminal records and they are looking for employment, so they go down here to this owned by other people and they see this on their record, and no, they are not, they're not getting in that door. No way. You know, you have this and that. And I don't want to start discussing things that have to do with the judicial system, because we'll just be going on and on. But I'm sure that many of us are familiar with how we are sentenced and how other people are sentenced, and how sometimes it seems like that we are almost set up to have these criminal records. Well, if we would support each other, we would have businesses, that would be an option. We have the option to help our people. As an owner, as an owner, if somebody, I make the decision who works for me. So if I see that such and such is trying, but they have this little small thing, minor infraction on their record, then it's up to me to make that final decision on whether I will employ that person. So it gives us some flexibility. And like I said, it diversifies our options to be able to help each other. That was number 3. And number 4, it grows our economy. And I'm not talking about the global economy. I'm talking economy, specifically Black people's economy. It grows our economy. I understand business owners. By no means am I telling them to just target out Black people to be your customer. No, we live in a global, global economy. You want everybody's money. You want to, you want to try to have a product that you can push to everybody, because money is green. But when I speak about growing our economic power, what we can do when we grow our economy, we have the ability to affect laws that are being made. When we sit back and we wonder why, other people seem to be, advancing ahead of us, it's because they have economic power and they know how to use it and they know how to influence law. Money gives you the power to influence law in your favor. So that was just some of the 4 points. And I'm going to stop it right there, because this is a really, really in-depth subject that we need to discuss, but we don't have a whole bunch of time. I'm going to see what Rick wants to say, and then we can close it out. But we are definitely going to come back and speak on this, because it's just like an onion. We have to peel back the layers to really get to everything. And it's going to make us cry because there are some harsh truths that we need to acknowledge, but we need to get it done. We need to get it done. And, we didn't intend for this broadcast to be so long and drawn out, but I just wanted to make a few points so that the people can think about them. And, we can start just making some progress, laying some groundwork. But you guys, we need to get this done. I'm sure that many of you have been paying attention to the political arena. So we have all of this stuff that is being legislated that is not in our favor. And if there's anytime the time is now for us to start communicating better with each other, realizing some of these things, and finding a common ground that we can come together and make some progress. Rick, you can go ahead and take it.
Oh wow, man! You touched on so many points, and obviously I can't get back. Obviously, I can't get back to everything that touched on. But some of the things that I just really want to touch on is you talked about how we prepare our kids. Those of you who don't know me, Tiffany brought me in to be a partner in growing this and being out based on my level of expertise in a number of certain areas. Number one, in understanding historically the Black plight, but also having an extensive background in business. Matter of fact, one of the companies I run now is I help predominantly non-Blacks grow their visions and their dreams by helping them enhance their performance. But one of the things when you look at what we're doing is we enter into an institution that's not designed for us, the public education system. And we're trained and conditioned with a mindset that trains us to go out into a world and look for jobs. We are never trained and taught ownership. Ownership is the first foundational principle and reality on which you build wealth. Ownership provides capacity. Without ownership, you have no fluidity and no mobility. And when you're properly treating your people, I was actually mentored into business as a young athlete. I was mentored into business by a Jew, and he opened up their culture to me. And it's a lot I saw that was completely opposite of ours, where we were told to sit quiet at the table. That's where they talked business. That's where they talked expectation, where there was very little specific engagement and direction as far as what it was going to be demanded of me as a Black man. They taught their young males exactly what was expected of them, and certain things where you're going to own a business, you're going to do this, you're going to operate in here. This is unacceptable. This is acceptable. And what happens is Like I said, if you're unfamiliar with me, you probably don't know a lot, but I am in the process now of publishing book number 20. Book number 16 was The Miseducation of Black Youth in America. And in that book, I highlight what I call the true definition of education. We have confused the attainment of academic skills with education. And because we've confused the attainment of academic skills with education, we think that's the end all. Education, in its truest sense, the true definition is the holistic preparation and empowerment of an individual to go out into a world that's inherently hostile towards them and not only compete but win. When you have been holistically educated, when you have been properly racially socialized and prepared to succeed in the world, when you go out into the world and you experience something that is not working for you, that is not serving your interests, that is not providing for you that thing which you need for you and your loved ones, you have the capacity because you have been adequately prepared to change it. When you're educated with the sole purpose of getting skills to go out and work for someone else, you're always leaning on someone else. So the first part of it is properly socializing our youth. And there are so many other different things that we deal with. And she talked about the power of economy. I'm gonna get that, and then I'm gonna stop there, and we'll come back, and we're gonna get these technical issues straightened out, and we're gonna really go and dig deep into this. But when you talk about economic power, I tell people all the time, every time something happens in the Black community, you see this rush to protest. You see this rush to grab a sign, march, and show people how upset we are. And then we never get the results we're looking for. We get frustrated. After a while, anger, which is the emotion that's driving us, subsides because it doesn't have endurance. We're not operating from a position of passion. We're not operating from a structured agenda. We're not operating from anything that can guide us outside of our emotion. So when the emotion subsides, when we stop being angry, and you can't stay angry forever. So when you stop being angry, you put the sign down and you go back and you just take another loss. Well, the problem is that you can march all day long, but until you underwrite your protest with economic power, and economic power comes in two ways. Economic power comes within the capacity to institute economic sanction, meaning that if you don't do something that I need you to do or that I'm demanding of you, then I'm going to pull money out of your economy. And I'm going to do that by way of boycott. I'm going to do that by way of diverted investment. And I'm going to take that out. That's one way that you exercise economic power. The other way that you exercise economic power is by diverting money you're pulling out of someone else's economy that's not serving your interest and probably operating against you, is rediverting that into an allocation in which serves an agenda that you want. So you don't just simply pull your money out. You reinvest your money in something that now serves your interest and in many ways competes against the very force in which you extracted your money. So I am not only going to pull my money out of your economy, I'm going to take that money and invest it in something that now I am not your customer, I'm your competitor. And that gets things done. Asians, you talk about economic power. Asians, the one thing we always been taught as Blacks, you gotta vote, you gotta vote, you gotta vote, 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 vote. The reason this happened is you didn't vote. The reason this happened, you didn't vote, you didn't vote, you didn't vote. And when you study Asians who have the highest earning median in America, they actually earn more from a median household than whites. They are number 2 in wealth, and they are closing the wealth gap between them and whites at a very rapid pace. And this is why. Number one, they function as a collective. Number 2, they have specific codes of conduct and behavior in how they spend their money. Number 2, they are loyal to reinvesting in the Asian culture. Number 3 is they don't waste their time voting because they've learned that it's not who you put in, it's who you are able to lobby with your money that's going to be able to produce the results you're looking for politically. So in other words, while voting works better on a local level, when you get to the state and federal levels, it's about the money you're able to collectively invest in a specific interest that you can put in the pockets of certain politics, as Dr. Claude Anderson says, you got to either buy or rent you some politicians, or you're not going to be in the political game. No matter how much you vote, no matter what. How many times have you voted and you're still not gotten what you want? Why? Because you are not underwriting your vote. You're not underwriting your protest with economic power. We don't want to invest in ourselves. And the other way that you do that is not simply by creating businesses that patronize blacks. One of the ways that other races have grown their cultures in America has been by ravaging and raping the black economy. In other words, creating products and services and businesses inside black culture, pulling that money out and never bringing it back. One of the ways that we grow the black economy is by creating businesses that serve interests in other economies, Asians, Hispanics, and whatever. When you provide a business that provides a quality product, they will buy it. Then you take that money, bring it back into the black economy, invest it in black interests, and don't take it back to them. You're going to have to understand the entire dynamic of how economics works on a vertical and a horizontal scale in order to build this type of power. And with that being said, we have to see black business for what it is. It is the vehicle through which we build the power that will serve as the catalyst and the sustaining force to elevate us to this position we keep talking about of liberation. You can't have liberation without economic power and autonomy. As long as you're dependent, I think it was Carter G. Woodson that says, as long as the person that is in the ghetto is dependent upon the person who put them in the ghetto to get out of the ghetto, they will never come out of the ghetto. To meet their basic needs, they'll never come out of the ghetto. And that's what we're witnessing. We have to be autonomous. We have to stop asking permission to be who we are. We have to stop looking to them to fund and finance what we're going to become. Until we get to a point to where we don't even go to a white-owned bank to seek funding for our business. We know we got the community behind us and we can get the funding among ourselves. We're not going to see power because power comes by way of economy. And so with that being said, it's so much more that we could talk about, but we'll get back to it. But at the end of the day, we have got to see black business in a broader sense. We've got to see black business for not only what it is now, but what it has the capacity to be. We have to be willing to put self aside. And that means that the individualism that we have inculcated so deeply into our psyche is put aside for collectivism. And we start to see one another as a whole and a group that operates with a singular interest in mind. We don't have a black agenda. We don't have any type of strategic plan in place on a holistic level of where we're going and what we're going to do. Every other group does. And until we can get that, and business is a big part of it, but until we can get that, we're going to always have these problems where we're being misused, mistreated, oppressed, and mishandled because we don't have the capacity to respond. And that's where we're at. So that's it for where I have now, Tiff. So what we'll do is we'll try to find a way to deal with these technical issues by next week. And we're going to come back and we're going to pick up where we left off. And we're going to go for it. And we're going to hopefully get even more people involved and giving their opinions and sharing what's going on. And then we'll take it from there. But the thing is what we're trying to create with the Black Business Owners Network is a place where you can come and be with other like-minded people, a place where you can actually create a network where you're working with others to accomplish things. It's your greatest resource as a person and as a business owner is your resourcefulness, because you will not always have the capital, you will not always have the equipment, you will not always have the pathway or the connections. But if you are resourceful, you will find them. You will create a way. You will connect with the right people. And this is what this network offers. It offers a chance to touch bases and be willing. This is something I can't say enough, and I'm done. Be willing to pay for those things that benefit you. That's something we've got to get out of, is demanding Black business owners and people who have taken years to hone skills to do different services. Stop trying to get it for free, because if it's going to benefit you, it's worth paying. And you just have to make sure that what you're paying is worth the value that you're receiving. And if it's so, it's worth the investment. We got to learn to invest in ourselves. That's the biggest investment we can make. And we tend to not want to do it. And until we can get to that point, we're going to have problems anyway. But that's it for me. Tiffany, you got anything?
No, I'm done. We're gonna work on the technical part of all of this so that we can come back and do this probably next week, or we different next week or whatever. But at any rate, we will revisit this topic, and that's just about it for me.
All right. Well, we definitely thank you guys for stopping by. This will be posted on the page indefinitely. It'll also be on my YouTube channel a little later today, and that it'll be there indefinitely. And so I'm trying to get some of my people over here as well from YouTube. But we got a lot to do and a long way to go. And it's going to be dependent upon everybody coming together and connecting and sharing ideas and working together and building. So we look forward to it. You guys have an awesome day, and we're out of here.
All right. Bye-bye.